Chapter 6, More Than Just a Pretty Face. Research isn't easy when Google pops out a lot of results. I typed in Winston Churchill and got around 91 million hits. Just a little bit more reading than I was willing to do, thanks. I ended up doing an image search instead. I mean, a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? So if you look at the 10 pictures, you've already read like 20 books. Math is my best subject for a reason. Well, it's not actually, but whatever. Pretty much all the images that came up were useless, at least when it came to figuring out what my dad's issue with Churchill was, assuming, of course, that Ahmed Jelani didn't just really hate bow ties, because it looked like Winston was crazy about them. Anyways, it wasn't until I was on my way to the Akram's house and that I realized, even though I didn't understand my father, there was someone who, against all odds, could just ask my mom. I also hadn't remembered to ask her why Bisma's father had called me. I glanced quickly at the van's rearview mirror and to my sides just to make sure there weren't cops around, and reached for my phone. As soon as I touched it, it buzzed and started playing the theme song from Disney's Ratatouille. I nearly dropped the phone, but recovered enough to see who it was. Hey, Zar. Listen, I got a number for a Pur dude in Pakistan in case you want it. You got whose phone number? A Pir. My mom said some Pir people in Pakistan, the holy guys who fight black magic and all that. They make amulets and stuff. I had heard of them. My parents had taught me most of these holy guys were charlatans and nothing more, but I guess Zar and his family believed otherwise. Okay. And I just thought, who could use hookup like that? And then I thought you could, in case you want to pray for you to crush Renaissance Man and to graduate this year. Never hurts to have a Pur dude on your side. Is that his name? Pur dude? I don't think they have names, Zar said. I mean, obviously do, but I don't think they share them. Ruins the mystic's mystique. He goes by Purgy, I think. Sounds legit. Gotta try it. I really don't. Intezar let it out an irritated sigh. What could it hurt? These guys are like miraculous, okay? One of my cousins was totally in love with this girl, and Paraji gave him a super secret prayer to recite like 30,000 times a day or something. And your cousin got the girl he wanted? And what? No. He was so distracted trying to keep track of his 30,000 recitations that he got into a car accident and died. It was horrible. Doesn't mean it wouldn't have worked, though. I opened my mouth to argue, then decided against it. With Intezar, you just had to go with the flow. It was like trying to argue with a strong wind. All the logic in the world won't make it change its course, and it's possible you'll end up swallowing a bug. Fine, whatever. Let's talk about it later. I've got to meet the dad of that Akram girl I told you about. That's today? I forgot, and damn, this uncle ain't wasting time. They're gonna lock you down. I shook my head. I wanted to tell him that was not happening, but Zar would demand an explanation, and I wasn't going to betray Bisma Akram's confidence. He didn't seem interested. What's wrong? She's Ugo or something? No, dude, uncool. We shouldn't talk about people like that. Whatever, man. Affability is a prime factor in arranged marriages. I groaned. In addition to Intezar's theories about sex, he also had a number of opinions about arranged marriages. Primary thesis was that it was a low-tech eugenics program to create ideal brown people. You take a smart man, smart being measured primarily by the balance of his bank account or the potential of his bank account, and mate him with an attractive woman, attraction being measured by how light the color of her skin is with brown spectrum, in the hopes of producing children that are both smart and attractive. Sounded ridiculous, of course, but that's why it rang true. It seemed like something Desi aunties would attempt. Yeah, I've heard it all before. Look, you know that I like Kaval, so the rest is of this is a waste of time. There was a pause. Then Zara let out a long breath. You're shopping outside your price range. What? It's like you're at the grocery store and you're trying to buy eggs. You, my Brownther, you've got your eyes on some double A, or in Cavallo say double stop, and trying to make the Brownther happen. I heard him huff. You're a mean girl, and fine. I won't impinge on the honor of your fair maiden, Mr. Trelawney. What do you think impinge means? I don't know. I heard that line on TV or something. If he'd heard it on TV, it was probably a real word. Anyway, Intezar said, Caval is like free range and organic and corn-fed and all that. She's prime eggs, fresh. The problem is that you're broke. You're really only looking at like grade C eggs, all watery and flat and a little cracked. So if your parents are able to get a grade B, I mean, they're a little thick, but you should go for it. You know a lot about eggs, I said. I looked at the USDA regulations, or guidelines, and I've been sitting on these for a while. And Intezar chuckled. Get it? Sitting on it? Yeah, I get it. I'm right about this, Danielle, he said, with his voice more serious than I'd heard before in a long time. You should listen to me. I sighed. My mom said the same thing. You really think she's that far out of my league? Yar. Cavallo is NFL Pro Bowl, all right? You're like a game of kabaddi in a small village in effing Garonwala, that no one showed up to. I appreciate the sensitivity with which you answered my question. What are friends for? For helping. They're for helping. I got your number for Purgy, he protested. Thanks for that. Hey, listen, I gotta let you go. I'm here. A girl, or around 14 or so, answered the door. The family resemblance was so strong that even if I'd met her from somewhere else, I would have known immediately that she was Bisma Akram's sister. When I smiled and greeted her, she nodded but didn't smile back. They're in there. She gave a swift, jerky wave in the direction of the formal living room and scurried away. That was weird. Maybe she was just shy. The three Akrams had met. I met before were waiting for me in a nicely, if traditionally, decorated room. There's a red rug with a paisley pattern, thick, heavy wooden furniture with flowers carved on it. There were a few coffee tables with an assortment of religious knickknacks on them, like a miniature replica of a prophet's mosque, Medina, or a glass cube that said Allah on one side in Arabic and Muhammad on the other. On the far wall hung a painting with several verses of the Quran. The calligraphy was beautiful. It was from Al-Daha, the chapter named The Morning Hours, and it read, Did he not find you lost and guide you? The Akrams were each sitting in different corners of the room, almost as if they were trying to stay as far away from each other as possible. Jalil Akram, Bisma's father, got up to greet me. He was one of the men I instantly resented a little because he had gravity about him, something that makes you think that his broad shoulders and tall frame belong in a dignified black and white picture from the 1930s. I don't have that impressiveness. I don't think I ever will. He shook my hand. Thank you for coming, Daniel. His wife, a pleasantly round woman, managed to smile, though I could tell her from her eyes she'd been crying. I glanced behind me at where Bisma was sitting, dressed in a plain white shalwar kameez, but she wouldn't look at me in the eye. Sit here, Jalil Akram said, pointing to the couch directly opposite Bisma, so you can look at her when you make your decision. I raised my eyebrows, but his back was to me already as he went and sat down next to his wife. I did what I was told. Bisma's eyes remained fixed on the floor. Her father cleared his throat. As you are aware, he said in a formal, emotionless manner, which made me think he'd written out a script and memorized it. My eldest daughter has, in her past, made a grave error, which has dishonored her and dishonored our family. She has left us unable to hold our heads high in society. She's cut the noses off our faces. Bisma was picking viciously at her skin right above her, by her right thumbnail. I wanted to tell her to stop so that she wouldn't tear it open, make herself bleed, but I didn't. Her breathing was labored. I was certain if she looked up, there would be tears in her eyes. Despite this, my wife has a delusion that this wretched girl of ours can have a normal life. My wife wants her to get married and waste our time and time with other people by parading this. He trailed off and gestured toward Bisma in front of prospects like yourself. It always ends badly. She tells the boys the truth, and if she wouldn't, I would. We won't perpetuate a fraud on anyone. All of them refuse, as they naturally must. All of the young men she's met, and my understanding is that you were the kindest to her. For that, may Allah bless you. I didn't know what to say to that. I didn't even want to nod, because it would seem that I was agreeing with his cruel speech, but I felt like I should say something or do something. Unfortunately, Jalil Akram was not done speaking. It is because of your kindness that I must now use you for a demonstration. My wife's ridiculous hopes for this girl must be killed. Her attempts at getting this girl married must stop. I'm sorry, but I have to put an end to this once and for all. I must. So I'm going to make you an offer to see if you, the kindness of her would-be prospects, will accept her. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a USB drive. I have what is hopefully the only copy of her filthy video with that horrid white boy here. If you agree to marry Bisma, you can have it. That way, you can be sure it never gets out. I will pay you also to compensate for the deficiency in her character. Sir, I said, with all due respect, I wanted to say this was effing insane, but I was truly speechless. Nothing in my experience, or the experience of anyone I'd ever known, had prepared me for this encounter like this. Bisma's mother had tears running down her cheeks. She got to her feet to walk away, but in a cold tone her husband commanded her to stay. Then, with a grimace, he turned his attention back to me. $10,000? I shook my head stunned. What are you? No, 20,000 then. If you will just listen for 50,000, he asked. Stop, Bisma pleaded quietly from across the room. Please. Mrs. Akram, for her part, bolted from the room weeping. Her husband watched her go in silence and then continued. You know, they say that before the Prophet Muhammad stopped the practice in the dark days of Arabia, they used to bury daughters alive when they were born. I never understood that until... Oh my gosh. That is enough. I was on my feet, my voice raised. Before I'd even fully considered what I was doing. In my life, I'd never spoken to an adult like this, and though I was trembling with the daring of it, I couldn't stop myself. It was like a new part of me had been woken. Part of me burning with righteousness, unquenchable fire. There are limits to your respect, to the respect your age and your relationship to Bisma give you, and you, Mr. Akram, you're over the limit. This is mean, and I'm sorry, but it's not how a man acts. It's disgusting. I could feel the rage radiating from the older man. His eyes were wide with fury for a moment. I thought he might try to hit me. Somehow I managed not to cringe at the thought of the blow. He didn't do it, though. Instead, he said, "Get out of my house." Then, without waiting to see if I obeyed, he turned and stalked out of the room. Bisma was sobbing now, slender arms wrapped around her waist, as if trying to comfort herself because there was no one else in the world who would. I knelt down in front of her and took her hands in mine. "I'm sorry," I said. "He's such an a-hole," she managed to say. "I hate him so much." I wanted to hold her then more than I wanted anything in my entire life. That, however, wouldn't have been proper. It would have been a sin. I shouldn't have been even holding her hands, truth be told. I was surprised she hadn't pulled them away. I wanted to do something for her. I wanted to console her, but I also needed her to know that I didn't think the things her father had said were true. I wanted her to know what? I couldn't even think of all the things that I wanted to say. much less figure out how to say them. An image from my childhood came to my mind. I had dropped a Quran on the floor once when I was a kid. It just slipped from my hand. I remember watching as my mother knelt down and picked it up. Then she pressed the Quran to her lips, kissing it once and then raised it to one eye and then the next. It was an apology and a show of reverence for something holy that, if it fell, would forever be exalted. I leaned forward and kissed Bisma's hand. I raised them to one eye and then the next, and I got to my feet. Bisma's younger sister, was standing at the threshold in the room, staring at us. As soon as I stepped away, she rushed past me and threw her arms around Bisma. I let myself out. I just drove. Something about my anger longed for the growl of powerful mechanical beasts converting fuel and fury into emotion on the open road. Of course there are dreams of muscle cars. I was driving a minivan with 150,000 odd miles on it. Even if I floored the accelerator, the aged Odyssey would have only managed a weak mule. I was near the heart of Silicon Valley, and there was no open roads, all the arteries feeding souls to San Francisco.